Hello, everyone, and welcome to the second annual Star Wars Destiny panel here at the Nova Open. Last year's moderator was not available, so they got me. Sorry. But I'm Jason from the Chance Cube, and we have joining us today are several wonderful peer content creators that we have across the Star Wars Destiny community. We've got Jack from the Golden Dice.
You can talk loud enough.
We got Rick from the Knights of Ren. Joe, aka Honestly Sarcastic from the Hyperloops. Ruben Sanchez from the Chance Cube. And the only reason that we're all here, Jeremy Zorn, lead designer for Star Wars Destiny. We couldn't say that last year. He took over. He's moving up. Next year, he's going to not be here because he's going to be running the thing. Right? No? Yes?
He's going to Wizards of the Coast for
so the goal here today over the next hour is to just have a good, honest dialogue about Star Wars Destiny, where we're at as a game. Whatever Jeremy can say, he'll say, and what he can't say, he will decline to say anything. He's seen all the questions and has told me what things he can and can't say, so I'll try not to put him in that situation again. But we've got a couple of topics we'll hit on. At the end, we'll open up to questions from you guys, and you can also ask Jeremy questions, and he will say he can't answer it. But feel free to try. I'm going in and out. Mike. Whoa, it's sensitive.
I'm an engineer.
I can speak really loud if I need to. So I want to throw this one out there. What? What's happening? These guys, I can't control anymore. I think it just started. So this one I'm going to throw out to our content creators here to my left of Jeremy. And you guys just pass the mic around as you guys want to answer. So we're going to start talking about sets and rotation. We are coming upon a significant milestone in the development of this game, as the first standard rotation will take effect with Set 7, which is the set to follow across the galaxy for those who are counting. How can we begin to prepare now for this rotation, which will likely affect the gameplay for Worlds 2019? No, anybody. Chime in.
So you're asking how we can prepare for that right now?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I mean, I'm always a proponent for pushing for that rotation, and I'm very glad that it's starting now, because I think we're all tired of, every blue deck has Force Illusions, and, well, most of us, right? But I feel like there's a lot of cards in the sets that just never really got a chance to shine, just due to the fact that the 30-card decks just doesn't give you a lot of room to kind of play around with things. So, I included a lot of questionable choices in my deck list, but it was well enough to get me into the top cut for today. You good? Sure. Yeah. But, it's basically like if you're playing trilogies, you're kind of getting a head start on the rotation, right? Paying attention to what is doing well in those tournaments when you see them will help you kind of be able to judge what we're going to be looking at there. And then Jeremy always dumps crazy things like Jin on us at the last minute, and we have no idea what it's actually going to look like. But it's playing with the trilogies, just seeing what you can do with the limited card pool. It's a good way to start. Anybody else?
Oh, somebody gave him the mic.
I disagree, because so what happened is we got a bunch of like 13-point characters that let you play crappy cards like Natural Pilot, and anything that lets you play some 4-drop that doesn't have redeploy has a place in my heart. You take like the worst legends created by man in these first 5 sets, and now we have a deck that plays them, and we call it Crotch Rocket. And I don't know, bad legends became playable with broken stuff, and it's really good. And I love broken stuff. Let's have Jeremy talk about this one.
You said your cards are crappy.
Ouch.
Yeah, right?
Well, I think Rick had a very good answer about trilogies format. Just pay attention what's doing really well in there, since a lot of those decks will easily port over to the new standard. And for Set 7, we'll definitely change things further. There will be lots of core staples leaving standard, which, depending who you are, that can be a good thing, potentially a bad thing. But I think we're definitely doing our best to try to, replace those core staples with, maybe more fair cards that could serve the same role as those cards. So I'm looking forward to it.
So this one will be addressed to everyone, and we'll start with. We'll give you time to think about it. We'll start with Jack there at the end. Answer both of these questions from the game's first 3 sets. So of course, Awakening, Spirit of Rebellion, and Empire at War. What will you miss the most from the game? What do you wish will get reprinted? And what are you glad to see go?
Man, that was 3 questions.
That
I
was-
think,
sorry.
Actually. Threw an extra one.
2.5.
on.
Bonus question.
I think I'm excited for a lot of. I mean, we kind of mentioned it. A lot of the core staples, at least, of removal, like we've talked about, like something like He Doesn't Like You, or Feeling Anger, or Isolation, even. Just some of these Awakenings cards, Electroshock, whatever it might be, just kind of going out. Because sometimes when now this 30-card deck, you already have, 6 to 10 cards that you're just kind of throwing in that are from this first set. And trilogies in this current meta hasn't been explored exactly as much as that. So I'm excited to see kind of the staples of the set: Force Illusion, Hyperspace Jump, Second Chance, all that stuff to rotate out. Not because it bothers me or anything like that, just to see a new game explored necessarily. I guess as we go into the next set, I think I'm most excited to see how the new Han Solo plays out. Being a fan of him in Star Wars in general, he's kind of wrote me in. He's been my favorite character, so to see how he plays out in the new set at 15 points, I'm really excited. The first one was awesome. I was the idiot that played Han in the Vibranife meta, but here we are, still existing. So just excited to see him reprinted and see how he does. I'm kind of excited for that, and just the new characters, new Jin. Cassian coming into the game with pairings and stuff like that. So just new characters and seeing how they fit into the current meta excites me for the new set. So, yeah.
I guess the most that I'm sad to see go, I don't know. It's a lot of the removal. It's hopefully we'll get better. We'll get reprints of the same stuff. That's probably going to be the biggest hit when you kind of lose half the card pool. You're losing a lot of removal. So as long as things get reprinted and we don't go around the current iteration of I'm going to remove all your dice and I'm going to do it for free because I can spot this thing. But as long as it doesn't get too far on that side, and we still keep some of those staple removals like Electroshock, things like that are good but not too good. I think it'll be fun.
I'm gonna miss Night Sister. She's always been good too. And DH17 because it goes in like every deck with a range that I've ever built. I think I'll be happy to no longer see Ancient Lightsaber and Shoto Lightsaber, and Lightsaber Pull because who the heck keeps making tutors?
Well, since I played Mill a lot, so I hate to see all the mitigation cards being gone, but it's nice to see the ancient lightsabers being removed because that's a dagger in the Mill trying to get rid of those cards. But I would say what I'm excited to see with the new set is every time I see a card being spoiled, as a Mill player, I'm always looking for that card that's going to be, all right, I'm going to take some more cards off the deck, and the new Jin being spoiled, especially pairing it with Cassian. I saw it during the staff challenge being played against me, and I was playing the Mill deck against it, and it's just as fast. So it's pretty exciting. So every time, I'm excited to see some more Mill mechanics being displayed in the next few sets.
Yeah, there will be cards that we reprint. We'll tend to do more in base sets than non-base sets, and if you have favorite cards that are fair, there's a decent chance it will eventually reprint them. So a lot of those other cards that people complain about that have a far less chance of seeing reprinted. So, but you never know. We'll see. So yeah, it'll be a fun set. I'm really looking forward to set 7.
The last question of this particular topic, I wanted to ask the panelists, and Jeremy can weigh in as well. When Way of the Force's release date was released, Andrew Navarro, who is FFG's head of studio, came forward with some very honest admissions about the delay in the release of Way of the Force and how it will not affect future sets' release dates. Yet the impact of the delay was felt throughout the game as the community clamored for the next set or abandoned the game altogether in favor of the next new thing. How can we, as advocates for this game, help bring people back into the game or acquire new players as the game continues to develop?
You or me? I think it's
Yeah, I feel like part of that, I understand there is frustration within not just a late release date, but of sometimes people feel lack of support from FFG within the quarterly kits and how they're kind of getting out late. But I feel like at some point, some of that falls within the heads of the local communities. I feel like sometimes we don't do a good enough job personally as players, kind of inviting people out or creating an environment where people feel intrigued to come out. And what was interesting is that my store actually put on like a learn to play event, and I feel like it was run well. A lot of our community guys came in, and like I know a few players like brought they were like giant wine tall bags, but they had like dice. One was character, one was upgrade, one was support, and you could just reach your hand in a bag, pull out a dice, and you got that card. And it was just like stuff like that kind of created excitement within our community. And the store owner even was like, "This was the best selling day of Destiny, I've ever had to date." So stuff like that. I get frustration of the sets. I mean, I felt it as well, just kind of getting excited for new cards. But, when the president of the company comes out and says that this isn't affecting further release dates, that's something that you just kind of got to trust and wait to see it play out. But you still kind of, after this community, just kind of constantly engage, constantly reach out to new players and kind of change up and spice up the weekly events. Because that's how the game lives. It's through game stores. So that's just kind of my take on it. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, luckily my local area, we didn't really feel the hit of it. We still are able to maintain about 15 to 20 people on a week. I mean, but like Ruben, you're there all the time. We go out of our way to kind of welcome new people into it and teach them the games. But things like that is exactly what will end up killing a game when they can't get the product out to the people. And that's just an unfortunate reality, and it's out of their hands most of the time, just through the nature of the manufacturing process, having to happen in foreign areas and shipped over via boats, and sometimes those things get held up in customs, and they're like, "What is all this stuff? It's just a big brick of dice and all this," and they have no idea what's going on, and it just sits there, and then things happen with strikes and everything else, and it's just completely out of FFG's hands, but they're the ones that have to answer for it for the customers, right? I mean, we expect, product on the shelves when you say it's going to come, and, we want it there, and we want it now, and we want to just throw our money at it, but it, unfortunately, it's just out of their hands.
For the most part, I think, like, even though we had a excessive amount of time with legacies and that meta format, like, I think we were still evolving as players and a community, because, like, we had decks coming out the woodworks near the end. We had like the Obi Maz, and there was like the Yoda Hondo like ranged aggro decks, and just different kind of stuff coming near the end. Yoda as a rookie pilot, et cetera, et cetera. So, like, I think we were able to further explore into the set because we had so much time, and it wasn't just, oh, this is the best deck. Like, we were actually able to go and make counters, and it's a consistent thing that happens. And anyone who even follows like day 1, day 2, it was like, all right, well, UK Nationals had, crazy vehicle decks, and then, or Gen Con had mill, then UK Nationals had crazy vehicle decks to beat the mill, and then now we're looking at new crazy Afro decks to beat the vehicle decks. And I don't know. So, like, I think whatever ends up happening, like, we'll be fine. Like, but if they really wanted to kind of explode the player base, they would put like $1 million cash tournament.
Yeah, that's probably not going to happen anytime soon. But, touching on what Rick and, was saying about the community, the local communities, the stores, that is the big part of it. Yeah, sometimes, delays happen, but most of us are adults. We know that life goes on. We can focus on other things, but at the same time, I look at it like this, with the way the game is being played, like you said, the president came out and said, hey, we know it's been late, we're going to work on it, we're going to make it better. You just gotta trust that fact, because at the end of the day, you know, we're playing a game and we're trying to, like, you know, you were saying it very, very well. We're just gonna throw money at it. We will. Everyone wants to throw money at it and get all these cards and stuff, and I think just the fact that we're seeing some spoilers now, seeing them early, and getting everybody excited again, and I just think that excitement is gonna make it great for the game. And like I said, you know, just gotta be patient. I guess that's how it is.
Yeah, I have to agree with you guys about like just doing local store events, trying to teach new players when you into the game, and maybe doing alternate formats like Jack said. It's kind of fun, interesting way to play the game is to have a whole different way to approach what you do normally instead of just playing the same old competitive tournament decks. You can try to do something crazy like he said, or lots of other alternate formats out there that could be very interesting for more casual friendly newer players to get introduced to the game and try to draw new fans that way.
So we're going to shift into talking a little bit about the meta and our responses to it. This is kind of a pretty interesting time in the game as we're Way of the Force is still evolving. We've had a couple of major tournaments, U.S. Nationals, Euros, and then the Gen Con tournament, all showing various different facets of this current meta and how it's still evolving. But I think in response to what happened at Gen Con, for the first time in this game's history, Mill is now a prevalent archetype. How can we adjust to this shift playing against a Mill deck, which is a dramatically different experience than playing against a damaged deck?
I'll go first.
Yeah, of course you will.
I guess with the Gen Con, with the Mill deck being, the winner, I think the biggest shift is people, when Mill first started being, played, people are like, oh, that's a cute deck. I mean, I'm glad you brought it over and I'm going to crush it, which is fine. It happened a lot. And then as the sets came out, Mill started getting a lot better and getting a little bit more respectable. And then now that Gen Con, Mill won, now everyone was screaming balance. When did that happen? But with Mill being so popular, people are playing it at different events, the Euros and the Nationals here. I just think that it's so important to know that at the end of the day, every deck is beatable. Not every die is going to roll in your favor. Yeah, there's mitigation. Yeah, you can roll for discard, this and that. People just need to, like Aaron Rodgers says, just relax. It's going to be okay. People will beat other decks. I think right now we are in a rock, paper, scissors format, which I'm really excited about. Vehicles are winning. You got your Mill deck, and then of course you got the Tacos deck, which I think is so funny that they named it like that. But I really think that at the end of the day, everything's going to be just fine with this format.
Mill's no longer king. I don't know, he's dead. He's dead, man. Like, we got Snoke vehicles and more Snoke vehicles, Afra vehicle, or Afra Executioner.
Still Snoke.
Well, no, that's
Executioner.
Snoke Afra.
Yeah,
Battle Droid. I was talking about the Executioners, because Destiny Council just came out to cut. And then, at the bottom of the brackets, we got Mill. People who just didn't evolve. And then there's some Kylo, too. Whatever.
His fighting words.
I don't remember.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see what happens tomorrow, where Mill falls in that category. I mean, you playing it? No.
No.
I'm not. You're not. You're doing commentary.
I know.
You're playing it downstairs at the challenge decks? Yeah.
Promo card.
So- So, I mean, it's like, the best players piloting it will do well with it, but people didn't kind of expect that Mill deck. Like, I mean, it kind of came out of left field. Nobody really, respected the Anakin spot racer, with Anakin and stuff like that. One die Cassian, they just kind of like, all right, cool, whatever, I'll mitigate it. But then they realized they're just discarding cards to mitigate a Mill card. So, I mean, I don't know, it's definitely beatable, and, people figured that out the following week, and, everything went back to normal. But whenever you have an alternate win condition that starts being too good, people are going to scream, this isn't the way that Destiny is supposed to be. I want to swing my lightsabers and stuff like that. But this is a portion that the designers have to build towards, because people that are bad people like Ruben just love to play Mill, and they have to be able to build for those people as well. They can't just kind of keep them over there. You guys just play with your Mill, it's a casual thing, I know you're competitive, but we're not going to make it too competitive. But again, at the same time, you kind of have to balance that, right? Because if it went any higher than what you guys came up with for that, like, it might be an issue, right? That was probably a really fast mill. And I mean, there's actually faster stuff than that. But, you know, we're kind of at that tipping point, right? And hopefully rotation will kind of knock you guys back down again, because I don't want to play against mill. I don't like it. But, you know, it is what it is, right? You want to say?
Yeah. For vehicles, the first 3 sets.
I was talking with Jeremy earlier, and he's actually reprinting Sabine at 15 points, so it's really going to help counter Mill. I know he loves Sabine.
Okay.
But I mean, as the other guys were saying, is that as the meta evolves, you just kind of realize certain things. One of the biggest things about this 3-wide is that it milled just as fast as the 2-wide deck, but had 7 more health, but 2 yellow targets, which means 2 second chance targets, 2 spots for easy pickings, entangles, etc. So a lot better mitigation. And originally the meta was damage, so then that countered it very well by having 27 health, but 2 force illusions, 2 second chances, and a great mitigation package. And to see that turn, it also went in a way to counter that was something like a deck that could, we saw Probe start to pop up a lot more, we saw Disrupt start to pop up a lot more, discard. And if you're keeping this mill off resources, if you're keeping them off off of cards, if they don't have cards to mitigate you with, that's a big problem for them, because that means they're having to take resources instead of being able to mitigate you or mill you. That's the kind of the issue that they ran into. So, and this goes back to what Joe said earlier, is that sure, really powerful things will pop up, but the meta is going to shift into something like that. So I haven't been too worried about mill, simply because we've seen the meta evolve into decks that can easily disrupt 3 or discard 3 from a mill deck, and that kind of prevents them from doing what they want to do, and you can kind of punch through that 27 health deck. So.
Yeah, Mill's a very interesting archetype. You've got some people that really enjoy it, but there are many others that really don't. So it's definitely a difficult balance to try to find there. I guess I would prefer if there was maybe a viable Mill deck at times, but not like a really strong, like top tier dominant deck. And with Gen Con, it was kind of a surprise because people didn't really expect it, so it did very well. And now we have time to let the meta evolve and find counters. So it's difficult. We want to make sure that the mill players have some toys to play with, and winning the tournaments out of nowhere, people don't prepare for it. So, but as long as it stays a little bit below the tier 1 service, I think that's where I prefer it to be. So, but we'll see. It's always exciting. You never know what the players come up with. It's always fun to come to these events and see what kind of crazy concoctions that the players have.
And speaking of players coming up with crazy concoctions and the like, and this is more of a comment that you guys can comment on, or an observation. Kind of the way we're at in 2018 with social media and deck builders and the wonderful content that everyone's putting out in terms of sharing deck lists and all those types of things. We see something like Mill win Gen Con, and then we see a good portion of the field at Euros taking that deck because they think this is the deck to play. How can we, what kind of advice can we give to players who don't necessarily have the time or capacity or experience to create these decks or these counters, so that when they come to these events, they don't feel like they're bringing the best deck only to find out there's this new best deck they didn't know about? Like, how can we, what should we be doing to encourage this development outside of what we're doing, just posting these decks out there?
Sure.
Stop listening to us.
It just encourage. I mean, the way CCG works is that it's going to happen, and I mean it's been brought up. I think it even talked at a point before. I think it was on iRebel. Somebody posed the question of like, are the Hyperloops ruining the game because they're winning with these decks and putting these decks out? And Joe, you absolutely are not. But when a team that's as successful as the Hyperloops or Artificer are going to publish a deck list, of course it's going to be copied, and I don't think there's anything that you could possibly do to prevent that. I think it's just almost encouraging players to define the counter rather than play that deck. So that's just something that I think we as content creators we can look for the counter rather than just playing what is winning. I think that's the big thing that can be encouraged.
When you go to these large tournaments, there's generally only a few types of players that are going to be there. They're going to be the ones that are playing the perceived best deck. They're going to be the ones that are playing the counter to the perceived best deck or archetype. And then there's going to be the ones that are trying to next level them and play the counter to what they think the counter is going to be. And then there's the ones that are just going to play with, what they have been working on and things like that, right? And you just kind of got to figure out if you're one of those people, right? There's nothing wrong with, net decking. That's why we do what we do, because we want people to listen to what we say. You want the attention dollars that you're going to get for putting out these deck lists that one turn kill and stuff like that. We want you to play what we're putting out there, or else we wouldn't do that, right? When we put a deck list out there, go ahead, try it, see how you like it, see if you can change it, make it a little bit better, see what it's going to do in your meta, and how can you fight this deck, right? Whenever we actually put out any kind of deck list or talk about deck lists that have done well in the format, we always talk about why it works, what it's trying to do, and how you would try to fight it, right? And then try to educate people on, how to go about that process of thinking when you're getting ready for a tournament, right? We're not always right. We're not. You guys might be, but we're not, right? It's just a process that you need to go through, and you get better as a deck builder, and then you won't need to net deck, right? Or you'll take, archetypes that you see and then build them and make them your own.
So one of the things is, SW Destiny DB is definitely a great resource for net decking. And it's not like it's bad. This is great. This is how the community goes. People know what's going on, and it's not like, oh, Massachusetts has been playing this deck for 6 months, like Rainbow Nines, and no one knew what was going on. And then it's like Gen Con, and just crush people, and then now everyone's playing it. And luckily we're not back to a 2-deck format. But as far as deck building and stuff goes, it's never as simple as I want to play the counter. So if you can bring stuff down to an evaluation standpoint, and you just look at separate cards, and then what the synergies bring to it, you can kind of start to understand what's going on, where are the downfalls, where can you kind of poke a hole in, or chink in their armor, and kind of bust through. And that's why you'll see a lot of the quote unquote top players bring this new weird looking deck, and it's because we see and we know what's going on with the deck, what feels bad when we're playing it, when we're playing against stuff what wasn't working too great, and we can't go and fix that to make it better. Then we'll sometimes just switch decks to another deck that can kind of just expose that, and just crush it pretty much. And you're really just trying to next level over and over, but for the most part, if you just kind of look at sets and the cards, and you just kind of break things down to a more basic level with evaluation, you'll probably be more inclined to be able to build that random combination of characters, and eventually tweak it to be something you can walk into nationals or continentals and kind of just crush people. The decks don't just magically spawn and they're like, oh my god, this is great. Even Bazine Faust, Snoke Thrawn, they started from something, and there's tons of games. You find out what's wrong with it, you try to close the hole. You never run Z95 again. Just stuff like that. Just get rid of it, because that card's bad. But yeah, sure, Mr. Dunkley. Sure. Shots fired. Hyperloops. But yeah, I don't know, you can always just join the Hyperloop Patreon if you want to, just know what's going on. I try to hold off as long as possible.
I thought that was going to be open.
It was, but you got to talk first, so I couldn't start. But so yeah, let me give it to Ruben, because I will talk for the next 45 minutes if you've seen me drive.
But in regards to what they're saying, I think the biggest thing about this game itself is, when people, you can say net decking or whatnot, but I think just the community itself, seeing what people have played, every local meta is different. Some people run Mill, maybe, 1 or 2 people at my meta, but just think everything is different. So I also think that, at the end of the day, if you go on, like you were saying, the database and see all the different decks, it's fun, because being a mill player, seeing like doing the streams and seeing all these different decks, it's really exciting to see all the different cards being played that people haven't seen in a while. But I think the best thing to do is when you go to these tournaments is also to go as a team, because you get a lot of people get to see the different. Day one, people can be, okay, I'm going to take a look and see what I'm going to run with this deck and see how it goes against the field. And the people that get to play day two get to see what they're playing, and it also gives them advantage as well, too. So that's one of the things that you could do as well, is go as a team and see what's being played.
I think the card pool itself now has been growing quite a bit over the past year and a half now. There's over 800 cards in the format, and with set 6, I think it'll be over 1,000, so that's a lot of cards to, try to dig through for some diamonds in the rough, or find cards that people have banned as being terrible. And you never know, put them together in the right deck, they might turn out to be pretty well. I mean, Rick's deck's got a number of those cards that are originally, people just ignore them. Or, yeah, they're not good at all, but he's doing extremely well at Nationals with them. And even like Joe having Natural Pilot, that's another card that people just pretty much ignore, but here he is doing very well with it. So I think it's a great opportunity for people to really dive into the card pool and find other cards like that that might just work.
Snoke's broken.
This next question will be directed pretty much exclusively at Jeremy. When Mill won Gen Con, there was a bit of an errata cry, but since it has lost at Euros and its performance here, that seems to have died down. Jeremy, what actually goes into you and your team determining what needs to be adjusted and how?
Well, we have a wall with all the cards spread across it. We just randomly throw darts at them. Well, it's very complicated. There's, it really just depends on what, the perceived problem is and how bad people think it is. So, like with, Mill recently, for some people were, saying there should be something done. It's way too strong. It's oppressive, but I think you don't want to make any changes too soon, because you do want to let the meta evolve, and a lot of times answers will be found and things will change. So a year ago there was FN, and yeah, I admit that lasted far too long. It should have been changed, I felt, much sooner. So there's instances that it's difficult to say without trying to think of a specific card or problem. So I would say Mill right now, I think it's strong, but I think there's plenty of answers. So we'll just keep an eye on the format and see how it goes as more decks come to fruition and the meta keeps evolving. And so I hope not the best answer, I assume, but it's really,
It was long-winded. I'm impressed.
it's true. It really depends on the situation. It's really hard to give a specific answer without like a specific card or problem to talk about.
So why did Unkar get knocked back down, or knocked back up? Knocked back down?
Okay.
Yeah, well, he got rebalanced in the last.
He was bad.
I'm just curious.
Yeah.
That's one specific example.
That's true, yeah. Unkar, yeah, I guess originally, we knocked him out because, Unkar was a very oppressive deck. A lot of players just did not have fun playing against that whatsoever. So we want to play it safe and just make sure that deck was, kind of went extinct for a while. Let Legacies come out with a whole bunch of brand new cards and let the metagame, change and go from there. So after quite a bit of time, we kind of got confident that Unkar would probably be fine to just get knocked down 1 point and see how it goes. And it turns out, there'd be no problem doing that. So we might leave him at 1 point for now because, again, he's just a card that can be very frustrating to play against. I guess it would be very interesting on this metagame with a lot of high-cost cards he can play, Planetary Bombardments and ATSDs. So he could have a field day in this metagame. So yeah, I think right now with him being +1 is perfectly fine. If you knock him down 1 more point to his original cost, that'd be back to doing the Thron card deck. So watching this metagame, it's interesting. I'd be curious to see how strong that deck is. So we'll keep an eye on it, and you never know. We'll see.
Moving on to organized play and prizing, and I will preface this by saying Jeremy is strictly a designer and does not work for organized play. So these are suggestions that will be filtered 3 times before they even get to someone who can make a significant difference here. But some thoughts on alternative format events. So Euro saw a 2v2 team event. Nova is championing this Battle Royale event. Anybody play Battle Royale? Yes? Cool? Liking it? Yeah? Last year they did the Emperors, which was a 3-on-3 team match. But still, the only alternate format that we have official rules for is, the multiplayer Battle Royale that we see happen at Worlds as side events typically. Any thoughts about if these events should be explored, official rules come out, supported in some way as the game develops?
Nobody wants this one.
That's fine.
I'll take it.
I figured it'd be going.
I'm running out of time and I have 30 more questions.
So I thought the Battle Royale was actually a lot of fun. It was a little prohibitive, but they did a lot of testing prior to it to try and weed out any potential, problem stuff. And they didn't catch one thing with the climate disruption already, but it's fine. You can't catch them all, right? No matter what people want to say. But I think it was kind of fun that when we were out there today, there was a table that just tried to game the system, and then like the community, we saw what they were doing, and then the next round, everybody was like, "All right, you're dead first. We're just gonna get this out of here," and they did not win, even though that they had completely broke the rule or broke the intent of the system. So I think it was fun. I mean, the hidden motive promos, I gotta say, probably the best promos that we've had ever. There's been a lot of organized play promos that are just, why are you doing this, right? But yeah, those hidden promos, hidden motives, everybody's got 2 of, and they want them in half or all their blue decks or most of them at least. And so giving those out was a real good draw for it. I mean, honestly, that's the primary reason why I played in 2 of them today, was just to get those. So if we can continue on those lines to get cards that are heavily played, and we want those cards, right? So.
You covered it well.
All right.
What was the question?
Alternate format events.
Alternate format.
And do you like them? And should they be official?
Standard.
I only play competitive stuff, no comment. Plead the fifth.
Okay. So I like playing, the game socially, everyone get to play the game together. So I like some kind of singleton format like Magic has with the Commander format. I think that'd be something kind of fun to be playing against. And I think the Battle Royale is a good step for that, except for the fact that, you get there's those limitations. But I would like to see more multiplayer aspects of this game, because I know when the rules were initially out, there was maybe a paragraph of multiplayer. I'm thinking, hey, all right, exciting when I first started joining this game, because I quit Magic because, they banned Splinter Turn, but anyway. But just the fact that I'd like to see more multiplayer events, I'd like to see some organized play based off of different formats like trilogies, and, because we have the rotations coming up as well, too, so that's what I'm looking forward to.
Yeah, personally, I agree. I'm a very big fan of alternate formats. I think they can provide a lot for the players, especially a more casual-oriented player base that isn't super competitive. They just want to come in, hang out, have fun, be social, especially multiplayer. Yeah, I think I'm very interested in maybe exploring some of those formats and potentially make them official. I'm just a designer, so I can't do it myself, but I can make suggestions. So I think it'd be another great way to maybe expand the game and try to draw new players in with these cool, interesting formats that are just different than normal competitive play.
For the content creators, what will you participate in Infinite, and what are you looking forward to in that format, which we will see when rotation happens? And to Jeremy, what can you tell us about Infinite, and will we see any sort of significant holocron adjustment to make all the sets kind of feel better? That's a horrible question, but I'll let you think about it.
Did I go to Jeremy?
It's for us to see if we'll talk about it.
I guess my answer to it almost relates to trilogies as well. I relatively enjoy trilogies, but I maybe played 5 games. But to me, the weirdest thing was I played at a Galactic qualifier, won the trilogies event to qualify for World's standard event. And I think that was the biggest thing for me, is that I could put time into this format to then qualify for something that was a different format. So if Infinite has a format that is supported as well, and there's something to it, I would be interested. But I'm probably along the same lines as Joe's thinking too, where I generally play standard, and because that's what's supported and that's what the world's big tournament is and things like that. So Infinite interests me, but how much I'll play it probably depends on how much it's supported through FFG. But it definitely seems like it could be like a wild west type situation, and you know, if they like took back all the restrictions, it would be really interesting to see what would happen. But yeah, it really just depends on how much it's formatted throughout the game. So
Yeah, it'll be something that we probably do when there's a lull in the distribution again. But it's going to be difficult for me personally to like devote a lot of time to Infinite, because I got 5 games in with the deck that I played yesterday before the tournament. That was my testing, and I lost 4 of those. So, you know, I don't have a lot of time to test, so I'm not gonna like kind of spend it on something that isn't like the competitive format, just because that's where I like to play. Right?
So I don't like alternative formats like solos and things like that, unless there's like real prize support. I do thoroughly enjoy Trilogy. Trilogy at Gen Con was very odd though. They tried to do it like it was a pod setup where we played 3 rounds and then got prizes based on that. So like I thought that was interesting and cool, but people clearly just jammed whatever they could into the deck. I think Infinite's going to kind of be like that. Expect a bunch of like OTK type decks, because we're just gonna have all this stuff, and I really don't think the designer will go and be like, oh, we can't print this. This will be broken in Infinite. No. They're just gonna print it, and it's gonna be broken no matter what. Like Snoke and Yoda. And no, but I love broken stuff. Like I don't know. Like you guys are currently residing in my world now, in the land of 3-wide, and I've been here since Awakenings. So, welcome.
I mean, I think everybody hit it on the head with, you know, the different formats and so forth. So I'm just gonna pass this on to Jeremy.
Thanks, Ruben. Yeah, Infinite will definitely be interesting. You know, it'll be everything legal, so as the card pool expands, yeah, nothing rotates, so people are going to pay, you know, the best cards with the most broken synergies, so we'll see what happens, but yeah, I'm not going to totally ignore the format. Like, if stuff does get crazy, yeah, we can, you know, fix it and make changes and try to make it interesting, you know, still very fun and exciting, and I'm sure there will be at times, you know, crazy stuff. That's just how, you know, card pools tend to happen with no rotation at all, everything being legal. They're just bound to find the best, most efficient decks. But I'm not gonna let things get completely out of hand. Like, I'll definitely try to maintain some sort of balance where not all OTK decks everywhere. So, but yeah, it'll be exciting to see what players come up with such a large card pool.
For the last 15 minutes here, and I want to make sure we get some time for questions if there are any, but we're going to move into game design. The first question I have to ask is, Gungans, were they designed to give players who feel like they can't roll damage some hope?
Yeah, but definitely designed for myself, since that's all I do is role playing. So I love to reward players for doing that. Yeah, Gungans are one of my favorites because they're our first, you know, like tribal deck in Destiny. So it's one thing I've been pushing for since day one, is to try to implement more, you know, character subtypes. Have, you know, a lot of fun design space. A lot of players love tribal and just throwing all the Gungan stuff together and see what happens. And I totally agree. So, you know, we'll see what comes down the road.
So the nature of CCGs is to always push the design envelope with every set, adding new elements. We've seen a lot of elements with legacies, with the introduction of indirect damage and plots. Way of the Force saw more ambitious plot design, and now we have rumors of a negative point plot card. In what ways would you like to see the game change in the future? Knowing that you're in a headspace of set 9, 10, 11 is kind of where you guys are at, so you're about a year and a half out with game design. But what would you guys like to see? How would you like to see this game evolve over, you know, the course of the next, you know, half dozen sets? And Jeremy will politely say no comment when he gets the mic, I'm sure.
Personally, for me, I'd like to see a die side that mills from the top of the deck, personally. You know, help keep the aggro decks a little bit, you know, balanced. But that's what I would like to see.
So, a precursor to understanding this, I've never watched Star Wars, so I'd like some non-canon stuff that it's not going to happen. I want Mara Jade, and Loop Juice.
Blue milk.
Blue milk?
Yeah, that's what the people in the know call it.
No, Loop Juice. Akbar got it from the belt,
Oh, okay.
and it's supposed to go crazy.
That's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I thought you said Luke juice.
No, Loop Juice.
Oh, okay.
Loop Juice would be a whole different thing.
Yeah.
I don't know if we're PG enough for this.
Probably not. I'm interested to see how the power creep is coming. Like we're kind of seeing it kind of get there. You're increasing health, decreasing points, and we kind of seen a lot of instances of that, which leads to these characters that right now, as they're kind of trickling into the format, are kind of people are picking up on them. Like we saw almost all Yoda, all Snoke, all Talzin, all Afra, things like that. It's very limited on what they do because they're in the next level right now, right? They're made for what's to come, and they're still in what we have. So I'm kind of interested to see what happens when a lot of those characters are at that point in health totals and die sides and special abilities and bustedness, I guess is what we would call it. To see it, once everything's busted, what actually ends up being really broken. I'm sure you guys will find it out before us and throw it out there for everybody. But yeah, I mean, we'll see.
I think one of my favorite things going forward that's come more to light is what Jeremy, I guess, touched on a little bit. Last question was just like the tribal idea, but almost like of Gungans. But also we're seeing now like TIE fighter swarms are going to potentially be a thing. X-wing swarms are going to potentially be a thing. But also like how they started off with the crossguard lightsaber, how if you play it on Kylo, it does the damage. Rey's lightsaber, if you play it on her, she gets 2 shields. Post Blaster does 3 damage instead of 2 if it's on him. Just seeing that idea explored has been really exciting for me, and to see how that breaks into formats, and even as the new set drops across the galaxy, still using it with the old characters. So potentially, we just saw Qui-Gon's lightsaber was spoiled just today, I think, in one of the matches. So it's like, can that work on the original Qui-Gon? Is that best on the new Qui-Gon? Same thing with Jin's blaster, although I'm not sure if anybody's running old Jin. But just things like that, and seeing that explored is really exciting to me. Unlike Joe, I've probably watched almost everything Star Wars, and probably read a lot of the books and stuff like that. So seeing that synergy and seeing that alluding to the books and the canon of the story is really exciting to me, and seeing that explored as we go further is definitely something that I'm excited for. So.
I saw pod racing 4 times.
4 times. Not the whole movie, just the pod racing.
Well, thank you, Jack. Yeah, that's something I've been very interested in doing is pushing those thematic ties to the game and trying to reward players for playing certain cards and their matching characters. Also, just characters overall. I feel early on some characters are definitely overcosted, and unfortunately some were pretty iconic, popular characters like Jin and Leia and others, Chewbacca, that just didn't see much competitive play. So going forward, I've been trying to push more of those iconic characters to be just better, more competitive, and so I like to see those be potentially tier 1 decks, and especially more thematic pairings. We just spoiled Jin this weekend, the new one with perfect pairing with Cassian. So there's a nice full 4-die start team, 2-character build that I think should be pretty strong. To me, it's very exciting. It's fun to see those players that love Star Wars experience that thematic cohesiveness and be able to play those characters together and have a good, strong deck. So yeah, at times things we might push things a little too far. I admit there has been those cards, and we'll try to do our best to fix them and move forward. But main thing is we want to make sure the game stays very fun and exciting. And at times we may push things too far, and that's just I think one unnecessary thing to keep the game very fun and exciting. You just have to be willing to do that. And allow yourself to at times make mistakes as long as you fix them.
So how bad is the punishment for us to play a negative point plot card?
Find out.
I tried. Right.
Yeah, I'll take a guess. I want to guess on this.
All right.
An official guess.
Yeah, it's a Hyperloop's guess. That means it's correct, right? No, okay, so like, I'm gonna speculate on these negative plots. So I expect them to be like really kind of screwy. So like, probably like, you know, negative a point or two, but you only like make one resource per round or something like that. Like negative point, and you take like 3 damage at the beginning, 4 damage. I don't know. It like when you roll out, it starts on a blank. Like the theory is to just be like kind of like pseudo busted stuff that only gives you 1 or 2 points. So you can put like crazy good team comps, but you'll start the game behind, and we'll see Thrawn on card again.
Right, that was my concern there. So we've got a grand total of 8 minutes. If anyone has any burning, wow, your hand was up first. You sir in the back with the Star Wars Destiny T-shirt. We can hear you. We can speak from
You
there.
don't have to run down.
You don't have to run down.
This
Say
is
the
not the
price
Price
is
is Right.
Right.
This is not a run down. You get-
Play the music. It's gonna be a good one. No, just say
No,
it. Just say it.
It's not the Price is Right.
Oh, just say it. I know it's not for Jeremy. Question for OP. I don't know if you guys are for the opinion of the panel of the content creators. As far as penalties go for misplays, how many penalties can you get per misplay until you actually like ejected from a game or a tournament per se? How many oops I forgot, I'm sorry.
I think we're. Oh, okay. You wanna?
Why did you look at him?
So
Not nice.
I think the thing about it is that we as a community, we kind of have to police it because they can't do anything unless it's video on camera, blatant. It can't be the word of somebody else. And you know it. We kind of had to not let it go away, right? I mean, I know what you're referring to, but like we just a lot of times what happens is things like that just kind of gotta go away, and then it comes back again, and then we just kind of move on to something else, and we just got to keep an eye on things like that. Organized play can't do anything to it unless it happens on camera and they can prove that it happened, right?
I want to know what he's talking about because I don't understand.
Here, give me. No, it's fine. I can say whatever I want. Long story short, there are things in the background that a lot of people just wouldn't understand with the question. In theory, a lot of it is not nice, but there is a part to take from this. Competitive play, as far as FFG concerned, doesn't, I feel like, exist. You can see it from the prizes, but you can also see it from the lack of kind of order when it comes to rule sets. Gen Con, there were 3 deck list errors from players in the top 32. There were no game losses. That's kind of unheard of from a national or continental level of play. So if realistically you want something to change like that, you're going to have to probably get in touch with OP as far and, you know, get them to tighten up the constraints on that. It's always like, oh, well, let's be friendly and take backs and whatever. But a lot of it is that that's not how it is at the top levels. Like, we should be held accountable for our mistakes. So they could essentially create a negative or like a warning system. Okay, there's misplays, game state errors. Okay, you have a warning for this tournament. Get another one, fine, you get a game loss. Then you can get DQ'd for that event. But it probably should not be held for a long amount of time. If cheating is caught on stream or something of that sort, then I'd expect people to essentially handle that. But the dilemma is that there's blatant cheating, and then there's like potentially accidental. If I don't pay for my chance cube and I do it, I take 2 resources. We saw it at Gen Con. Like, that wasn't purposeful, and but you can never go and prove that it's not purposeful that was done. But they would have to tighten up stuff for that, give warnings, whatever they want to decide for things like that. But at the same time, if they do this based on streaming, there's going to be a bunch more people not wanting to be on stream because they're getting crucified by chat, by Facebook, Reddit, and just straight up destroyed. So like, you have to pick a middle ground. You can't have your cake and eat it too, based on this stuff. But I think we as a whole have to be nicer. We kind of have to police, each other to an extent, but it should never be, a mob mentality or a witch hunt. So just keep stuff in mind. If there's players that there's concerns about, bring it up, have people watch, and kind of just go for there. But we as a community, we're a very small community. Let's try not to attack each other and whatnot. And I think we should probably go to the next question.
I'm just sure you, bro. You can
Sir?
deal with that.
Brian? Yeah.
Jeremy, I played you earlier today and you whooped me. So with all this community challenge going on, personally, I want to bring it to a letter space here. How do you feel about the meta and what you've played? Do you think it's unfair, fair, or do you think that you've dealt with it in the next set?
Jeremy, whose headspace is in set number 10, how do you feel about the current state of the meta game based on your play experience?
Well, like I said, Jason, I'm usually well in the future, so I really don't play too much normal or real world Destiny at the moment. So coming to these events, yeah, it's a lot of fun to see the top level decks, be able to play against them. It's always cool to see surprise decks that usually crop up at these big events, and how our potential future cards might interact with those decks. And it's hard to really say too much about the future stuff. So yeah, there's a lot of decks that we don't know everything in the future. It's really difficult to test such a large card pool with such limited resources. So there's always decks that come out that surprise us. We didn't quite foresee it, but we always do our best. So it's just a lot of fun to come out and see them face to face and play against players like yourself and meet the community. So I always look forward to coming to these events.
Cool. So I really like when you make like really thematic things that are like really interesting. Like I love that Hondo was one of like the first neutral characters. Like I was thinking of that and I'm just like Hondo should be one of the first neutral characters before that even happened. But I really like also like the Bendu was like the first die card that's a plot. And I think that's like really awesome. And other like I just want to know like what people thought of that and if that's something like you guys want to see like more of, because I think that's one of the coolest things you've done is the Bendu.
The Bendu Battlefield. Anybody playing Bendu this weekend?
I don't see it enough. I want to see it more.
Awesome with Rack.
I'm still wondering the question: if it's your Bendu die, does your opponent get to roll it when they control?
Yes.
I think so.
I mean, I know it's on the card, but like,
Doritos or not.
right?
It's not your
See,
Bendu
that's my
die
question.
during the game.
Touching other people's stuff.
When you Grievous steal a weapon, it stayed on the
True.
Yeah, thank you. I always want to do those cards that kind of push the limits and they're very different and interesting. So like dice that aren't just characters or upgrades as far as dice cards that are different just on Battlefield. That's definitely something we're always trying to do, and you want to try to push the boundaries at all times. And it's a Battlefield that's rare is maybe not super appealing to some players, but others just it's different. So yeah, that's cool and interesting. We'll try to not do too much at once. Just like one in set 5 there is cool, just to show we can do it and see what the players think of it, and always try to find other ways to rise players. That's one of the funnest things of the job, is trying to come up with really cool, different stuff that people don't expect.
You want to chime in on Bendu?
Fine, sure. No, it'll be quick.
Okay, timing.
Yeah, no. People don't like cracking that thing as a rare, and the card, the die's pretty good. It's just real dangerous, so it's hard to run.
When was the last time you cracked a pack, non-draft?
I crack a case every set.
Okay. So it's a game.
Well, because I have to play with
Rare,
everything.
so-
I have to be able to build with everything.
Yeah.
So I show up in an event, but I only play with cards like once every 3 months.
I think we have time for one more, Chris.
Quick question?
Yeah.
So, it's hard to put this in words, so I don't want to kill 3 wides, but I'm curious, like, your guys' thoughts on hit point stacking. So there's like a point in the game where it's really good right now. You said there's a lot of overpowered stuff, and there is, like Snoke, Yoda, and all those things are really good, but you see a lot of decks built around them. You got like Yoda Cassian going aggro, you got Yoda Cassian, Annie going mill, you got Snoke and Afra, you got Snoke and Sienna. Like, there's different ways to kind of go with. So I feel like, yeah, they're strong, and I think you were right when you were saying that they're all coming out now. But I'm curious, like, how do you balance like the 2 wides? Like, when just adding another character gives you like 7, 8, 9, 10 more hit points versus like going with 22 hit points, knowing you have a solid and you're faster, but at the end of the day, does it really matter? Like, you have to do an extra 6, 7 damage a game to actually win.
Design balance when it comes to 2 wide versus 3 wide, or the infamous single character.
5. Yeah, well, Battlejoy is 5. Yeah, it's a good question. You know, I think for a long time there was, 2 wides were the norm. You see, original Worlds winner was, Vader Raiders. 2 characters. That was kind of for a long time a norm. I know some players played, 3 or 4 characters back then. Joe, he was a big fan of that. But yeah, things are changing more recently now. There are more efficient characters overall with more health. It's one thing I was going for is try to increase health slightly overall, since for a while games are going extremely fast. You lose a character a second turn, and kind of some games would snowball. So trying to, in the long run, slow a game down slightly, so it'd be less of a concern. So, but now with making so many cheaper, efficient characters that include more health on your team, so it's something to definitely look into and factor. It's not a simple, easy solution to try to break things up. So I think there will be a lot more, very efficient, 2-character teams coming up. So we'll see if they can compete with those 3 wides, or potentially 4. Who knows how many wide teams in the future? We'll find out.
Did I hear 30 porgs, 1 point porgs? Ewoks? Couple point Ewoks? All right. That will end us for what you want to answer one more question?
Yeah, this gentleman raised his hand.
Yes, sorry. So there's one thing I remarked with my friend. The unmitigable damage has been consistently hit and nerfed. When I say that, it's like Sabine, that you cannot interact with that damages. The Vibo Knife, you cannot interact with the Force Illusion. FN, when you can play damages, more damages, right? Those kind of stuff has been nerfed again and again and again. But I see one more card that came up in the set of the Way of the Force that is still giving unmitigable damage, which is actually 000. Are you guys going to keep on piling up on unmitigable damage, or are you going to try to refrain on that?
Unmitigatable damage. You've nerfed it over and over again, yet it's still showing up. Why, Jeremy? Why? I think that was the nature of the question.
It's very powerful, yeah. Just have, and any way you can make the game where it's not interactive, the potential will be very strong. It is just can be a very unfun experience. The whole game is supposed to be extremely interactive, and ideally you take turn after turn, not always, but general basis. So when you have cards that can easily break that, it can be a very unfun experience. So sometimes it is extremely powerful and wins lots of tournaments as well. So then I think it's pretty justified to nerf stuff then. But sometimes if there's just a very negative play experience, just lots of players just do not like playing against certain things, like Vibo Knife, for a long time, it kind of made shields pretty much irrelevant. It just smashed right through them. So it's just, when you have some things that knock off, certain aspects of the game, just a single card that can really devalue something as important as shields, it's probably justified to do something to try to lessen that negative experience. So it's difficult to say, what cards become problematic and what ones deserve to be hit with, some sort of balance or errata. But all in all, always try to make a game that's very just fun and interactive, and it feels kind of just like Destiny, the more back and forth. And games that can be extremely quick, like Sabine, where you just blow out a character turn 1, that's not fun to play against. So I'd rather have games that are just more skill intensive, and the longer a game goes, the more likely the skilled player can win. So be able to cut down on those very non-interactive experiences, I think overall is good for the game.
Well, that will conclude our session today. The panelists will be up here for a couple extra minutes. If you have any burning questions you want to ask them, big thanks to Jack from the Golden Dice, and Rick from the Knights of Ren, and Joe from the Hyperloop, and Ruben from the Tennessee, and of course, lead designer now of Star Wars Destiny. We couldn't say this last year, but we can this year. Jeremy's learned. Thank you very much. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next year or tomorrow morning.